Okay, so like I said, no. We're not, like, that's such a weird transition. Like, just be chill. Oh my God. Okay, so yeah, as I hope y'all have gathered.
I don't give a fuck about looking cringe because I don't give a fuck about what a bitch gotta say about me, bitch. You bitches are boring.
People are so afraid of being cringe that they end up not being fun anymore.
If you are in the slightest bit odd or unusual, if you have a single interest that is not the most mainstream thing ever, if you have any identifiable feature that could get you criticized, you will not be spared from cringe culture.
Actually, cringe is not doing whatever the fuck you want because you're worried about what some bitch with an anime profile pic might say. What's actually cringe is tapping your little fingers to judge someone who's actually making moves instead of minding your fucking business.
To be cringe is to be free. I don't know who came up with that quote, but you're so right.
So what's really going on when we are cringing? And why is the idea of someone cringing at you the worst idea imaginable? Cringing has lacked some serious analysis, so let's get into it.
Bitch, what I was trying to say is this situation got me so wet and so dry at the same time. Exactly.
What's up, bitches? Welcome back to another episode of So Wet, So Dry. I'm one of your hosts, Autumn. Like this season, I feel like I need to start taking some more risks lately, and I work in entertainment.
And I'm your other host, Fiji, like the island, like the water. I cringe at myself all the time, and I work in social media and marketing.
So we are about to dive the fuck in on cringing, y'all. So there's cringing when it comes to our personal lives and our interpersonal relationships, and then there's also cringe culture, cringe content. And there are over 334 million cringe videos on TikTok alone.
Oh my God.
There are millions of searches on YouTube with the term cringe in it just per month. So the way the internet has taken cringe and fucking ran with it is one for the fucking books, okay? Mm-hmm. A lot of it online is giving cyberbullying really fucking hard with roots in ableism, white supremacy, sexism, all that shit. And then when it comes to our personal lives, it's hard to even define the word cringe at all because it's like different for every single person, or it can be. So in this episode, we're gonna break down cringe and contextualize it socially, psychologically, and culturally.
Okay.
We can unpack what the fuck's going on, and we're also going to take a look at some of the different types of cringe culture, cringe content videos out there, and how it is deeply rooted in a lot of hate and ableism. So through the research to get us started, the height of cringe really took off post-pandemic, and also like in this age of like everyone's online with social media. So from this Dazed article, our sense of cringe has been heightened to truffle pig levels of sensitivity. We can sniff out the tiniest flaws in someone else's public performance, dig them up, share them around. We're connoisseurs of cringe. Maybe we're even gluttons for it. And also in this article, the performance of sincerity that emerged through reality television, social media, and post 9/11 nationalism has a lot to do with why cringe has surfaced a lot. And the more we begin to watch others perform authenticity, the more awkwardness became a central feeling. So although we talk about a lot, like in episodes, there's a lack of sincerity, arguably with TikTok and like other reality shows, and especially like 2016 time, it was like a lot of realism. Like maybe it wasn't edited to perfection in the same way. And it's like, when you think about cringe, a lot of people go to like American Idol auditions, reality TV, which that is not going to be this episode. We're mostly going to break it down in our personal lives and also on TikTok. But it's just an idea. Like we got social media, post-pandemic, realism, 2016 time, and now we got cringe, 334 million videos on TikTok. So if you look up cringe just on good old Google, it'll tell you that it's to bend one's head and body in fear or in a servile manner, have an inward feeling of acute embarrassment or awkwardness. So embarrassment and awkwardness get thrown around a lot when it comes to cringe, but like honestly, through what I've seen, it also can be freedom of expression as well. Like people define it however the fuck they want to. I've watched like 50 videos on this, and I'm telling you, everyone has a slightly different definition of what the fucking word even means.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So it's a little bit confusing, but it's like, you know, cringe is awkwardness, it's embarrassment. We cringe at certain groups of people. We cringe at behaviors deemed unacceptable by like a white supremacist society. We cringe at people with real passions and emotions, body types, millennials, pick-me girls, incels. Like it goes fucking on. We cringe at particular groups and for what particular reasons. And that's kind of what we're going to unpack in this episode. But one of the other biggest things I found when like what is cringe, it is often uniquely tied to like specific hobbies or interests. And it like says this in this article. It's kind of like this idea of you do have a niche hobby or interest. You kind of have to preface it with being like, I know it's not cool, but like I like play The Sims.
Yeah,
and like that's literally me.
Yeah.
You know, it's like that is like a niche hobby. I just thought of that right now, bitch. Is that what you were thinking?
No, I
about?
was thinking the podcast, honestly, because I was like,
What?
I mean, it's not like cringe. Like we love the
Right.
podcast, we love you guys.
I mean, it
listening,
kind
all
of
that.
is.
But also,
Yeah.
like, especially if we were guys that had a podcast, it's like, oh, that's kind of cringe. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like telling someone,
Right.
oh, I have to like go home and record because I care about my. It feels vulnerable and like weird because it's like, oh, you care about
Exactly.
something too much. Yeah.
Right. And it's a lot about perception. And
Yep.
cringe is linked to being perceived like there is no fucking tomorrow, you guys.
Right.
Like it honestly blows my mind. But I really liked this definition. This is from someone named Sam Wolf, who's an author, and I really liked her take. She wrote a huge essay on cringe, you guys.
Okay.
But I really liked this because I feel this way too. She said, what makes cringe unique is that it involves an inward recoiling and often an associated and distinct grimacing of the face. Like a cringe is like a feeling that you like get inside and it kind of like snaps something in you and you're like, ugh,
Yeah,
like it's like a jolt.
It almost is like not painful, but it is a physical feeling too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like embarrassment can be, and it's like we'll get
Yeah,
into it,
like
but
red
cringe
face,
specifically,
whatever.
I feel like it's just like, yeah.
So we asked you guys, how often do you feel like you're being cringe? And 47% of you guys said the majority of the time. 44% said sometimes, and only 9% said never. And then we also asked you guys, how often do you cringe at someone else's behavior? And 50% of you guys said sometimes. 47% said every day, and 3% said never. Like, never is crazy for both of these, honestly. I cringe at myself, like, constantly every day, all the time. And also I cringe at other people constantly every day, all the time.
Right. Well, I feel like for me, it's like now that the spotlight is like where cringe is in the room with us.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, everything I'm doing
like we're
is
hypercritical.
horrible. Like actually don't look
Yes,
at me at
yes.
all, bro. But no, like I feel like I've found a lot of power over the years in like doing hypothetical cringe things, but like pretending that like it's not, and like empowering myself
or
off of that
laughing about
and
it.
just going for it.
Yeah.
Or laughing about it. Cause like when I think of cringe, I do think of flirting a lot.
Yes.
Or like someone that's just like I would describe like how I was acting like on New Year's Eve with you to be cringe.
Yes,
You know?
yeah.
So it's like when you're just, but I also didn't care, and like that's cool.
Right.
Too. But yeah, like I feel like I do cringe at myself quite a fucking bit. I don't think it's a good thing.
I mean,
but
sometimes it's funny. Like, sometimes you'll cringe at,
Right.
like, especially, like, I'm thinking, like, I went out last night, like, I'm with all my friends getting food, like, during the day today, and we're talking about everything that happened the night before, and it's, like, making fun of ourselves, like, cringing at some of the shit we did. Like, why was I, like,
Right.
fucked up background dancing for, like, karaoke? Like, I was doing a lot.
Yeah.
Like, low-key cringe to think about, but also funny because it was, like, in that moment, I was having a good time. Like, I was, like, drunk,
Right.
like, whatever. But there is,
Yeah.
like, sometimes you have to feel like, oh my God, I'm not an idiot, but that's so embarrassing. Why the fuck was I doing that first before you can like laugh at it? But like
Oh my
usually
God, yeah.
like you end up laughing at it. Like I think about us in college and a lot of shit we did was really fucking cringe.
don't say anything about those videos. Yeah, no, dude. No, dude. Yeah, like exactly. Like I trust you with my life. Like that's crazy. So you better not. Yeah. So it's like, yes. But I'm like, do we feel right now before going into this episode that this is because of like society? You know?
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's a natural human emotion to a certain extent.
right.
You
It's
know
been
what I'm
around
saying?
forever. It's not
Right.
like a new emotion. Like I'm sure the cavemen were cringing at things too.
Yeah, because it's probably like a survival mechanism. There's probably some science.
Yeah.
there. But I do think like when you said the thing about authenticity and like post 9/11, which I was like 9/11, what the? But
Yeah, okay, I don't know.
But I'm like, okay, like when I'm thinking about, there was that culture of like everyone's faking it for social media, so we need to
Right.
we need to be more authentic on social media. But then
Yeah, and
people
it's
were
like-
performing authenticity, and so then it was like real authenticity is cringe because like you can only do the performance of authenticity. Like it becomes
Right.
this like matrix of what is going
So
on.
true, babe. 100%.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking too, like, remember like Vine? Like,
Yes.
there wasn't like a lot of filters going on. Like,
Yes.
it was just like stupid.
We were
like, that was more realism
Yes.
as social media can get or
Yeah.
whatever. Like, that's, and even on TikTok too, a lot of creators, I'm like, they're literally just being themselves. Everyone loves TikTok because blah, blah, blah.
Because we were
But, like-
using, like, remember Facebook era Instagram? Like, we were just using
like, that shit
Facebook
was
to
real.
communicate. Like, normal,
Yeah.
like, in-person
Not
shit.
to be like like under
yeah.
everything. What
Now
the
we're
fuck
like
are we
fake.
doing?
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't want to cringe at other people. Like, I feel like that sucks. Like, and I
Yeah.
honestly, like, I have so much grace for humanity. Like, when
Yeah.
people are embarrassing, I'm like, oh my God, I feel so bad for them. Like, whatever. Like, I'm really not one to, like, make fun of others in that way.
Yeah.
But it's like you can't help it.
Yeah.
You know, when someone does something fucking, and it's always like a man. For
It's
me,
always,
too.
yeah,
like,
someone you're, like, dating or talking to, or even, like, I'm thinking, like,
oh my God, yeah.
bosses and stuff like that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes I think it's, like,
Or like my mother.
yeah.
Like,
Oh my God. My mom makes me cringe. I love her so
I'm
much.
like,
But like me and my
girl,
brother will
yeah.
be like, what did you just say? She'll be like, Yankee Doodle Dandy. Like, I don't know. Like, sometimes the phrases that she uses, we're like, where did
It's like,
that
yeah.
come from?
So basically, you guys, cringe is fucking hard to understand. There's a lot of definitions. It's very fucking broad. But I want to look at it in a social context first. So ContraPoints, which is one of the best video essays out there, essayists. I was just hip recently. Fiji put me on, per usual. Same old story, guys. But the video essay was absolutely phenomenal. So obviously we'll put it on the screen. And I learned a lot. And want to talk about this one idea she said. Like, she was talking about, so there's self-cringe. And then there's cringing at others. So,
Yeah.
like, I cringed during this podcast. What the
Yeah.
fuck am I doing? Whatever we cringe about last night. And then we cringe at other people, too. And then ContraPoints was saying some people say cringing at others is another form of secondhand embarrassment. Because we all know secondhand embarrassments, like, oh my God, I feel for them, whatever. But cringe is a little different. And because, you know, secondhand embarrassment is that you're actually feeling empathy for that person. But people don't think there's a lot of empathy within cringe usually, because the person doing the thing you're cringing about typically isn't feeling any embarrassment. It's actually their lack of self-awareness and
Right.
overconfidence
Okay.
that
T.
makes you cringe.
Yes.
Right? Like, it's like you're and then so like they provided an example, like someone falls on stage, whatever. She had like Jennifer Lawrence falling on stage at some award show. It's like we're all feeling bad. We're feeling
Yeah.
secondhand embarrassment. Jennifer Lawrence also is feeling embarrassment. She
Yeah.
just fucking fell, bro. But the cringe is when it's like, they're not embarrassed. Like, they did that with their full chest, and you cringe because you guys are having opposite, like, reactions to something that's going on. So, yeah, cringing at someone is different. Like, you're feeling something different than what they are feeling, and you cringe at them for not feeling the same way that you do. And she also defines cringe as a slash of self-perception and perception by others, which is super interesting. and backed up in the book Cringeworthy, A Theory of Awkwardness by Melissa Dahl. ContraPoints had this quote: "The moments that make us cringe are when we're yanked out of our own perspective and we can suddenly see ourselves from somebody else's point of view."
Yeah.
So I just thought that was really interesting. You know what I mean? Like, you can cringe with someone, you can cringe at someone, you can laugh with someone, you can laugh at someone.
Yeah.
Like, it's different, and that's where, like, all the bullying and shit comes in that we're gonna get into. But I think it's just important for us to, like, make that distinction first. Like, that's really what's going on. You're cringing because this person is not embarrassed by what they're doing.
Right.
And you believe that they should be for whatever reason.
Yeah. And I can think of so many times that I should have been embarrassed by what I was doing. But,
Oh my
but you're
God, me
not.
too.
You're just like, you're lit, you're
But it's
out,
way
like,
better
whatever.
when you're
Yeah.
not. Yeah. So fantastic. And this same idea was echoed in Sam Wolf's thesis because she also talked about Melissa Dahl's book. So she said, according to Dahl's theory of awkwardness, we cringe or feel awkward when the you think you're presenting to the world clashes with the way the world is actually seeing you. Let's run it the motherfuck back. The you,
Yeah.
no, wait. We cringe or feel awkward when the you think you're presenting to the world clashes with the way the world is actually seeing you. I'm going to look you guys in the fucking eyes right now. I don't think the way that I think I am out in the world is at all
aligned at all. Yeah,
and
no.
it's like really freaking me out, and like that like kind of broke me a little bit. But anyways, the moments that make us cringe are when we are yanked out of our own perspective so we can suddenly see ourselves from someone else's point of view. Some cringe depends on the interaction between the two yous, our self-conception and our self as it is perceived by others. This shows that cringe depends on social and cultural factors. If we never experience socialization or being embedded in a culture, could we ever really cringe? I doubt we could. And that's what I asked you. Like, do you think like society plays a huge like impact on this? Like, would it even be that much of a thing? Because it's like there's social norms and all of that. But
yeah, because the pressures, right? Like, because sometimes have you ever like, and I've been thinking about this too, because like obviously I can't stop thinking about bipolar and sobriety and all that stuff. But like, have you ever been in a heightened mood? I know that you have. And like, been like,
when I was doing this outline, I was up till 4 a.m. for no reason. Not because I needed to, because I wanted
you're
to.
Manic, probably.
Maybe.
A little bit.
But
off
yeah,
the
heightened
meds.
mood, I'm with
but
you,
you're
babe.
heightened mood, you're acting like you don't give a fuck how other people perceive you.
Yeah.
Like you're like, maybe like you might have a thought in your head, maybe a little bit consciously, that this is not a normal way to act, but you're just on such a fucking high that you don't give a fuck.
And
it feels good. And sometimes it is good because like I feel like, especially like for me, like I'm not always the best at like setting boundaries with people. So sometimes I need to be like drunk or manic or something to like just like prioritize my own boundaries. Like, you know what I'm saying? But then I cringe at myself for setting the boundary because it's not something I'm used to.
Because exactly.
You know, versus like, so it's like.
But you're able to do it in that moment because you don't give a fuck.
Right, exactly. But it's like other people probably aren't cringing at me setting the boundary. Like, that's normal. So it's so trippy to think about. But like with things like that, it's like you're anticipating how you think you should act or how you're used to acting. So you're cringing at yourself for like going off track. I feel like that is like a societal thing a little bit.
Right. But isn't it so trippy? And that's why I was like, I'm nervous for this episode because it's like, there's you, there's the person cringing, there's the other person watching in the room.
Yep.
Everyone's brains are different. Of course, we all kind of know what these like societal norms are and behaviors and how to act and whatever. We all know it's fucked up, but still like, if someone does it, like you might cringe at them, even if you believe it's wrong. Like we can't help it because these are like the social cues that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That really blew the fuck out of my mind. And also a little bit from this Dazed article, something I found really interesting, and I definitely want to do a main episode on this soon, is the connection between cringe culture and main character syndrome, okay? Main character syndrome. You're out here. It's all about you. you don't care, like
Right.
whatever, it's all you.
I have
And then
that.
cringe culture is like, wait, I lost it. Hold on. So this article talks about like the rise in main character syndrome and where we are told to be like the protagonists of our life. So author Olivia suggested that the so-called syndrome encourages perpetual self-surveillance. Everyone is always looking at me, and I'm always looking at me, looking at myself. Main characters can't exist without an audience. If people are creating content on social media, the instant feedback, often extremely positive or negative, and at a much greater speed and volume of what you would get to face-to-face interactions, can increase self-awareness, often to toxic levels. One negative feature of social media is the tendency to polarize and read a moral issue into every use of words or images. This is dangerous because it turns the response to embarrassing mistakes from a laughter that can involve the original poster to savage mockery that excludes them and invites shame rather than embarrassment. So it's just kind of like main character syndrome. It's like you have to be paying attention to what you're doing. Like you're focused on being perceived as this main character. Cringe is all about like being perceived and like feeling shame about doing sort of that thing. So this article just made an interesting point on how like these two things are big right now and they're kind of like clashing at the same time. Because so much of our culture is like, be whatever you want, and like we try to like be positive and like you're that girl, like, you know,
Right.
whatever main character, but then it's like we cringe at the fucking drop of a hat. Like it's so quick to like switch up on that. And I just think like we are so obsessed with like being perceived right now that it's like hard to even like be yourself and like figure out what the fuck you want from you, because you're just constantly having to like fight this like social, you know, norms situation going on. And yeah,
because it's kind of like the confidence culture, like main character
right,
syndrome.
that's what the
like,
word, yeah.
Everyone wants to be an influencer or be like an it girl or like da da da. So it's like you're constantly feeling like, oh, if I fall out of like this is how I'm supposed to be, where like nothing affects me, while simultaneously everyone wants to be me and like I love myself, like, you know what I'm saying? And that's just unattainable. So it's
Right.
like you're already setting like a bar for yourself that's kind of like unreachable. And that's why I think there's
Right.
so many memes about the embracing cringe and stuff too.
I know. And it's like cringe culture is dead, like blah, blah, blah. But it's like the thing is, it's like there's still so many videos on the internet. And I feel like whether we want to cringe or not, like we are in this kind of like society right now where it's like things are like really rigid, like things are getting more rigid. And it's like we live in cities, like we can express ourselves, but like the rest of the country, like I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I just feel like we're cringing at anyone and everyone right now. Like it just feels like a lot. But I don't know. For me, like I don't want to cringe at myself anymore. Like it doesn't feel good. But I'm also just like those memes that are like release the cringe, like be cringe. Like I just don't want to hear the word cringe ever the fuck again.
Yeah.
Like, I'm done with it.
Yeah.
So that's just where I'm at right now. But we asked you guys, do you find yourself more focused on how others will perceive you rather than who you really are? And 59% said yes and 41% said no. So really evenly split there.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm 100% more focused on how people are going to perceive me, especially having a podcast and like just like being a fucking human being. Like, I don't know, like I'm a people pleaser. I want people to like me. So sometimes I am more concerned of like doing things to make other people happy or like just fucking falling in line. And then it's like they're missing out on like the real me because I'm not really acting like myself. So it's definitely something I'm working on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm trying.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I definitely am very focused on how other people perceive me, because even how we've talked about, like, I forget what episode it was, like the validation one or whatever, where we're talking about hiding things from different groups of people, like where your identity is in that place. So I feel like I almost am anticipating how someone is gonna like judge me based off of this aspect of my personality. So I almost try to like avoid that completely. And then I'm like never really fully myself in any group of people because it's so like segmented, which is like stupid. But I definitely think about how I'm perceived like with social media and the podcast, and like I feel like the podcast less, because like once we get into a flow, like I know you, like we're such good friends that like I feel like it's like more calm, more chill, whatever. But like when we're starting the episode, when we're doing like there's certain moments where it's like, oh shit, like we're performing, and then like
all eyes
and when
on
we
me.
edit and stuff like that, like then it's like, oh my god,
no,
like
you guys don't understand. Every single we're never like sometimes we're like, oh yeah, like we ate with that, like that was a great idea. But most of the time I'm like, can we just get the fuck through it? And I feel like I even think ContraPoints talked about that too. Like watching yourself online,
my God.
like you're gonna cringe. Like 100%.
And you get over it gets easier because I remember when we first started editing ourselves, it was like, oh my God, like that's how I talk, like that's what I look like this is
I mean, because we got a little bit
like,
better.
oh, we say like all the time, or it just doing a lot. But honestly, when you think about it, people are probably cringing at us for shit that we don't know about and not cringing at us for the things that we think that they are. So does it matter?
Because cringe is all about perception, and something might be cringe in one space that is fucking celebrated till the end of the night in another space.
Right.
So it's just like, that's why it is a lot about like social shit, like what room you're in, like what's considered cringe, like it's just like
because even
I'm just like, I know that like we're Gen Z whatever, but like we're zillennial, but I'm like, I feel like Gen Z and like the cringe, like it's really bad.
It's bad,
like it's really bad.
It's
and I'm just
media.
like, they cringe at fucking everything. It's like we're just supposed to be robots and like look pretty and stand there. I'm like, we can't really do. But then, so
because we are a little bit sensitive as a generation, I feel like we're just like, we're so used to like seeing ourselves in other people and having so much access to all this information.
No, that is so
we're
true.
So like, we're overstimulated constantly. So it's just like,
it's too much.
But it's like, in reality, like, I don't know. I think about like my parents' generation, that like they never seem to cringe. Like they do sometimes, but it's just like, because they're in human interactions. Like I was thinking about that too when I was like hanging out with my friends today, like sober after a night of drinking the day before. And I'm like, so much of the shit that we're doing together is like cringe as fuck. Just like in the park, like yelling about sucking dick. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like we're doing a lot, but at the same time, it's not a lot because I'm with my friends and like it's socially acceptable amongst us, and like other people are also at the park living their lives. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, I feel like our generation post-pandemic, we sit alone in our beds on our phones so often just thinking about life instead of like living it. And then when you're actually like living the life, it's like, yes, this is probably cringe, but I don't really give a fuck because like I'm with the same people like that I was with yesterday.
No, because you just nailed it, bitch. We really do think about life more than we live life. And then when we do live life, oh, I'm a horrible slut. I'm a fucking whore.
Right. Because I haven't been living
because I made a choice to live. Like, and so, it's like you're a little cringe. And there's people loud as fuck on TikTok being like, be cringe, be free. It's the power and blah, blah, blah. Like,
and a little bit of cringe is healthy. You know what I'm saying? Like, sexism
we don't need to shut
is cringe.
Anything out.
Like, I want to cringe at like a dude that says a sexist thing, or like some of the like pop the balloon guys that are like doing too much. Like
when they like
cringe.
deserve to like be like low key bullied in that way because they're a bigot. Yeah, like I'll cringe at that all day long, and like I don't even think I want to get rid of self cringe. Like I think it's okay to like weird yourself out. Like if you never do, you're gonna explode because we're really weird. Like we do weird shit. You might as well get over it now and keep pushing. So we're gonna move into looking at cringe culturally now. And I thought that the way that this TikToker really described cringe as kind of a social construct was really interesting. So let's take a look at this.
It's one of those things where it's like so powerful in a way. Like anything can be cringe. That's the thing. We society like decide these things like as a collective, but like, so it's so weird. Like no one actually thinks about it. We just decide things are cringe subconsciously, which is so also confusing for us autistic people that cannot understand these social norms and these like secret, silent conclusions and assumptions allistics just make and go to.
I just really like how she lays it out. It's like we create what these sort of societal norms are as a society. It's not like the patriarchy man coming down on us. You know, it's like we do create things and have power, and like looking at cringe as sort of like a social construct. And you know what she was talking about too, like having autism, it's like it's extra hard for her to know like what are we supposed to be doing, like what are the social norms. And we're gonna get into it more, but like we said at the beginning, a lot of cringe culture online on the internet is extremely rooted in ableism.
Yeah.
But looking at cringe like a social construct, I've never looked at it like that before. Because it's so simple, right? It's like, oh, you just cringe at that. But no, this is so what, so dry. Like, we're going to think about it fucking deep, bitch.
Right.
And like, cringe is a social construct. It's like, why do we cringe at this one particular thing, though? And we're going to get into more like who and what do we cringe at more specifically. But I just liked how she said that.
Yeah, it does tie into patriarchy and stuff like that too. Because even thinking like what men used to cringe about with women is like hella sexist and like
exactly. That's why it's like it's and it's like racist, fat phobia.
Because
like,
it wasn't socially acceptable or isn't,
right?
Or like you know what I'm saying? Because it's racist or sexist
right.
or ableist or da 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 da. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of gender discrimination, like with gender fluid people. Like some of the top cringe compilation videos on YouTube are like young 13-year-old like gender fluid kids, and people are like cringing at them. Like it's horrible.
Even like a lot of like polyamorous people cringe at, like especially like the polyamorous like communities and stuff like that.
Totally.
Like people are like, oh, that's like so cringe. Anything that is like on the fringe of what isn't seen as like that the monoculture sort of thing is up
cringe.
For cringe, yeah.
Right, quote unquote, exactly. And this was an idea that Sam Wolf had in her thesis, again, talking about how cringe can be thought of as a symptom of anticipating potential rejection. It is a reaction linked to the culture we belong to, a culture that acts as social glue in a community. When we cringe at ourselves, this is a warning sign, a discomfort telling us we're straying from the cultural path and we're putting ourselves in social danger. When we cringe at others, this can motivate us to avoid that situation. Cringe can also be a way in which we evaluate the reputation of others, and it can be a form of shaming. All of this, again, aimed towards social conformity. So we as a culture decides what the fuck can be cringe. And it was so funny in ContraPoint's video essay. She was like, no, like we can't still be bullying on the internet. We're so above that, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, no, the fuck we're not, because this shit is like really bad. And like,
yes.
Yeah. So now a note on psychology. This was another interesting point in ContraPoint's essay, talking about like maybe why do we as a society enjoy like the cringe culture, which can be related to like the humiliation content. Like, why do we enjoy watching that? It's like a guilty pleasure, quote unquote. So some psychology about that. So ContraPoints talks about this book, The Joy of Pain by Richard Smith. And there's a term called this. I'll put it on the screen.
Schadenfreude?
Yeah, something like that. And it's the pleasure we take in other people's miseries. So talking about like psychologically, we gain something when other people lose. And we're constantly evaluating our own worth by comparing ourselves to others. So we get a pleasant feeling from comparing ourselves to people beneath us, especially if we're kind of insecure to begin with. So it's like cringing at someone else actually makes us feel good
better
about ourselves. And this made me think a lot about how people like cringe at like pick me girls. Like, oh my God, like she's just doing that for attention, or like she just did something so embarrassing in front of her crush, like in middle school or whatever, because it like psychologically like makes us feel better. Yeah. So we have something like cringe, like violating the internet. There's like a lot of bullying going on, and you pair that with like our society's obsession of being perceived with like psychologically it like feels good to cringe at other people and put them down. Like, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and it fucking does. Like, I remember when your ex got with that new girl and you were like, I feel like a misogynist, like, talk. But it's like, if someone does you dirty.
Wait, what? You gotta back up for the people. Hold on.
I'll let you explain that.
Wait, which one? Okay.
Right. When your ex went his new wife, and you're like, I wish like bad things upon her, but like, is that bad? But it's so valid and it's real. And I think about that for people who've done me dirty. Like, I wish you Schadenfreude. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I enjoy like I enjoy like seeing your misery or cringing at you because like you fucked me over. So, like I feel like that is like even though like you know you have to clock yourself and be like let me not also be a bully just because this person hurt me or da 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 da. But like it literally it feels better for a fucking reason to hate on people sometimes.
And especially if someone like of a higher status, like it felt good to hate on her because like she had my man now, so like she was above me in my mind. And I was like, yeah, like I want something bad to happen to her. Like I, you know what I mean? Like I don't want her to be happy with him.
Right.
But they're not married. I asked him.
Okay.
Remember, and he said no. So well, I mean, he could like, who knows? But I don't think. Anyways, so yeah, like there's psychology behind that, and then on the flip side. And you kind of hinted at this earlier, but the psychology of like actually nobody really fucking gives a fuck. And like we're cringing for no reason. So basically I saw this TikTok.
This is a public service announcement, guys. Listen to me very closely. Everything is embarrassing. Everything is cringe. Being on social media is cringe. Liking things on social media is cringe. Opening my camera to make this video is cringe. Everything in the world is embarrassing. So just do whatever it is you want to do. Just do it. I did this little investigation in Vice where I basically looked at this whole idea of like everything being cringe. And if we just embrace how cringe we are, will we be happier?
Reminds me of that like public, it's not called a public humiliation ritual, but maybe it is. You know when people will go like in public and do something fucking embarrassing. Like they will like set up a yoga mat. Like I'm trying to think of this TikTok I saw of this woman like doing something that is very socially not acceptable to like have people look at them weird and shit to help them get over the fear of like embarrassment and cringe and da-da-da-da.
Wow.
And that's like it, like what she's saying, like it's so fucking true. Like anything we do, someone else could perceive as cringe, embarrassing, lame, not cool, but also for the 10 people that think that, there could be 10 other people that genuinely fuck with it. I mean, even like someone like Kanye, I think a lot of the shit that Kanye does is really fucking cringe and also like problematic, especially lately. But like tons of people fucking love Kanye. And especially, I know so many artist guys in Atlanta where Kanye is their role model and they take everything that he does like super seriously. You know what I'm saying? Versus like the group of people like me where I'm looking at shit like, bro, like this can't be fucking serious. Like he's a loser. You know what I'm saying? Like obviously he's great at music and he has like whatever. But like when it comes to his actual personality, Kanye's a fucking loser. Like I'm sorry. But people think he's a genius and think he can do no wrong. So it's like, everybody has like what isn't, and some things I think we need the cringe. We need to socially shame people. Like Kanye can't just go tweeting like I'm a Nazi. Like that's crazy. Like you know what I'm saying? Like how he's doing. But like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's like your people will find you. Just be fucking cringe.
Yeah, and I think it's also like how like internet like comment sections like, do they imitate like actual real life? Because like it can seem so brutal online. Right. Like not even talking just like straight up hate and like ableism and all of that. But it's like just like it seems like, oh my God, cringe, 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 cringe. Like it seems like a lot. But like in real life, like is it really like that? Because a lot of people talk about like, yes, like I was bullied in high school for like having different hobbies and like not doing all these things, but it's like, and maybe it's just because I live in LA and like you live in Atlanta. Again, it was like we are lucky to like live in cities, but I'm like, it seems extreme online. I'm like, I hope it's not really like that for everyone in real life though. Like exactly like what you're saying. It's like, just be with people that fucking make you happy because it seems like it's rough out here. It's like everyone's making TikToks like they're angry, like cringe culture needs to go away, like blah, blah, blah. So it's like, taking it so seriously and then it's also like not that serious either. Like it's a really weird like
parallel. Because it's like also think about like when you have cringed at other people, like usually I feel like I'm only really cringing about someone and thinking about it if it's someone that I don't like or that like pissed me off or was like mean to me or something. And then like anything they do I'm cringing at because I'm just like, who raised you? and like you're an evil person. But like
Right.
if it's just some little thing or post or whatever, you cringe and you move the fuck on and don't think about it again.
Right.
Unless it's something that's like funny and then becomes like, you know, but I love the TikToks of people like posting their cringy shit and laughing with you too.
Right.
You know, like
I mean,
I
that's
like
like
that.
what we do. Like
Yeah,
all
exactly.
the time.
All the
Like
time.
in our skits that we
Self-deprecating,
post, it's like
human- yeah.
like is that cringe content, PG? Like some of those daddy TikToks we used to do. Like I'm like, it might be.
Because we were cringing at men that do that. And we
Right.
were imitating,
Like making
the
fun
feeling.
of them in
Yeah.
a way. But it is like
But is creating skits in general cringy? Yes.
Right. And it's like when you think about art and cringe, like that's a whole conversation too. You know, it's like that's another episode, but it's like I really do. But it's like cringe is like honesty, like real reactions or like whatever, like whether you're the person that did the cringy thing or you're feeling it. And like that's what art is. It's like realness, rawness,
and even
you know?
Crust Bag, I think that's the YouTuber, the one that I told Autumn like off camera. I watched his YouTube video essay about video essays and what it is like to be a creator. But he had talked about that entire concept, and he's like, look, you can't get both, especially with artists. Like you can't get the super niche, well-researched video essay if you don't have a little cringe manic person that might have been a theater kid and is like obsessed with like you can't have one without the other. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
am I so cringe actually? Like I was a theater kid. I play The Sims. I like dolls. Like I think I am.
I think,
but like
we
I
all
think
are,
it's
babe.
lovable, you know?
Right? Yes.
I do. Yeah. Like and it's like everyone has their shit though.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like it's just
like, do you
different.
have a couple stereotypical? Because like I was a theater kid in like middle school. Like when I went to Catholic school, I did the plays.
I was through 18, bitch.
But I wasn't. Yeah. But I did hella other like cringe shit.
Right. Just like different ways.
Like,
but
my-
yeah, I do have a lot of stereotypical ones. Oh my God.
But The Sims,
But
like,
that's not
like,
what
you
I
think
feel
playing The Sims
insecure
is
about.
So nerdy. But I had even met a girl out last night. I was like, oh, are you an artist or whatever? Because we were at the show, and she was like, oh no, like I do like nerdy shit, like play video games. And I'm like, oh my God, you literally sound just like my best friend.
Like that's what I
She
say.
said like you preface it with being like, oh my God,
Because
like, I do
that's
nerdy
like what
shit.
I said at the beginning. Don't worry. Like I know
Right.
it's not cool.
But like I don't. But it's like I don't even think it's not cool. People
Exactly,
have
and that's
whole
the
careers
psychology
as
on the other end.
Twitch streamers,
Like you
and
don't give a fuck. Right. Like, I could be making bank.
That's like
exactly.
like when I'm like, oh, my pussy's hairy before I fuck somebody. Like, oh, don't like I didn't get waxed yet. It's like, bro, like
oh yeah.
no,
that episode was so funny when we were talking about
Like-
that. It was like the need to say something.
Right.
And it's like
To
when you should really
address
just
it.
shut up.
right? Because
No,
it just
yeah.
makes it worse. Like,
And
you
I know-
because then it's almost cringy that you're showing them that you're cringing.
Yeah, it's like yeah, exactly. But I'll like honestly, I guess I cringe a little bit about The Sims, like not really about the dolls, like whatever stuffed animals. Like
Yeah.
I don't care. Like it's honestly inner child healing. Like
Right.
my bad. Like sorry that I was, like I don't know. And so but I cringe more at myself when it comes to like flirting and just like how I look when I'm in the grocery store line. Like, am I looking a little weird? Like that type of thing. And also, I just want to say, I know you're not really fucking with Lotto right now, but she did a Sims collaboration, like, or a Sims ad.
So she is a Sim?
Like she was a Sim in the ad, and like baddies in the comment section be like, "Oh my God, Lotto's for
Love
the
the
Sims."
Sims.
Like, so I'm like, I saw a bunch of bad bitches that play Sims in that comment section.
Right.
But yeah, it's just like it depends. Like if I go to a Sims convention, I'll be the coolest one. Like I love it.
Right.
But if I'm like at some other space, it's like fucking weird. You know what's crazy, guys? I haven't even played Sims in like 6 months. It's been a really long time. But all that to say, the article that the TikTok looked up, I was like, well, let me look it up. Like, that's what Fiji would do. She would be like, let's see what the actual source says and all of that. So, and it was from Vice, period.
Mhm,
Like,
we love
fucking
Vice.
love Vice. So, some psychology in here, researchers found that people who outwardly expressed their embarrassment were considered much more trustworthy and pro-social. And you know what's actually such tea is like, if someone like does something embarrassing like in a crowd and they like own it and they're like, oh, like that sucked, you know? I do kind of like want to love them more. Like I'm like that was so relatable
I feel like
and fun.
you are
that. Yeah,
and that's what makes
do
you
that.
very lovable. Like when I think about us at Emerson, like you are the one that's giving the barista your phone number or like pressing your full body against the library windows. Like you are
like
doing
with my mouth open.
Right, some slightly odd shit, but like it's fun and it's fun. Like so were my friends when I was with them in the park today. Like bruh, like apparently there's this one bathroom in Piedmont Park that dudes be fucking in. And so we get to Piedmont Park and we like take a field trip to the bathroom to see if anyone's fucking in the bathroom. I'm like, we are so cringe right now. Like treating this like a whole fucking mission. Like, you know what I'm saying? But like,
I wish there was another word because I don't want that to be cringe. I want that to be just like silly fun.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like it is. Like, it is socially acceptable when you're owning it.
Right.
You know, it's just when you think about it later, you're like, oh, to the people that weren't in my circle that were perceiving me in the other part of the library, maybe they thought I was cringe, but do I give a fuck? Like, I don't know.
Exactly. And more on that, Caitlin Tiffany wrote for The Atlantic last year, we've been given more opportunities to display our cringe-worthy characteristics and also to point out the cringe-worthy behavior of others. Simply put, being online is all about exposing ourselves and others, which creates more opportunity for cringe. So how do we navigate this? Do we simply embrace it? Just like what you literally just said. And then just like the TikTok she went on to mention that like people don't care as much as you think they do. It is scientifically proven that we are actually not the main character. And multiple studies have shown that we consistently overestimate the impact of our shortcomings. And I feel like we all know that. It's like, that's like, insecurity 101. Like you tell yourself like actually no one's looking, cares. No one cares. Like I'm not have to tell myself that, you know, like no, exactly, you're not that important. Like this spotlight is not on you. This is not a nightmare. But then
you get an occasional situation like I remember
where
that comment on one of our, we like don't get that much comments, guys. Obviously, you know, if you're on our YouTube channel.
Well, we did get a lot of comments once. On gender
from
wars
the
when people were hating
us. But I'm thinking of the comment on, it was the male validation. No, was it? It was the casual sex one. And the guy was like, you guys are lost souls. We're damaged.
Right.
We're, you know, so.
Bruised fruit.
Yep.
But beyond repair. That's what he said. Damaged beyond repair.
We don't know how badly we've hurt ourselves.
Right.
So then sometimes you get like someone say some shit. Like I went to my recent like corporate company dinner or whatever, and I also recently like told one of my coworkers about my like double life, and it's just so funny because like I always trip about the fact that everyone knows my secrets. Like I'm like everyone knows like thinking that I'm secretly a huge slut. With a podcast on and no one suspects it. Like I'm doing a great job at just pretending to be only a corporate bitch. You know what I'm saying? But like it's festers so much that you're just like, oh my God, like whatever. Like, you know, and then it trips you out when someone perceives you the way that you've like you want them to perceive you.
And I'm like, wait, it worked? Like it's crazy. I know.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, honestly, like that's why this whole episode is like really about perception too. Like with cringe, because that has everything to do with that. Do with it, and without like critical analysis, I don't think you can just come to that conclusion. You know, it's just cringe. You know,
right?
Real quick, if you guys like what you're listening to, make sure you are subscribed on YouTube and follow us on Spotify or Apple, depending on where you're listening. You can comment below. We would love to keep the conversation going. You can always DM us too. More additional thoughts for us to talk about. We post polls on Instagram at So Wet So Dry, the O's or zeros, every single week for upcoming episodes that are going. But let's move into actual cringe content on the internet. There are 1,002 different types. Let me fucking tell you guys. Like, I'm like, this is impossible to really get through everything. But for example, we have something like this, which is a cringe trend.
And I hope. Hi, you must be new here. This is my new hydro flask. You don't have one? How do you make your friendship bracelets then? Brotherin. Boy. Bruh. Brother?
And then we have harmless comedy cringe, like Amelia's chicken shop date interview.
Having a really nice time without the camera. I think we just enjoy each other's company. Maybe not. Fuck it.
I think we should be friends.
Okay. Great.
That's it.
Done.
Great. Should we hang out?
Okay.
Did I just friend zone this situation?
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Unless that's what you want.
No, I don't know what I want.
Okay. You haven't got to know what you want.
Do you have my number?
Do I?
Yes.
I
You
do.
asked for my number at a party.
I did.
And then there's things that I don't really know how to describe, like this.
In my land, they call me an alpha wolf. What the hell? Oh my god, no way, hey. That was pretty freaking cool, if I say so myself.
And then there's straight up bullying when people aren't actually doing anything. They're just doing like everyday activities, but they are fat or they have a mental disability or something like that. They're mentally ill, like whatever. And it's like, it's cringe just because they are not accepted by our quote unquote society. So there's a lot of different types. But yeah, what did you think about that one that was like?
Yeah, the
wolf?
last one. Yeah, I've seen her before. And it's like multiple things going on, right? Because like, don't you feel like sometimes like just as human beings, we have those weird moments where we just need to like get our energy out or do
say, like,
something fucking weird. Yeah, exactly. Something weird. But then the other thing, one, I think part of that is like an anime thing where people imitate anime, but then also the like finger thing and then the voice that's like, that is like, I don't know if it's like autistic people or people on the spectrum, what exactly it is, but that way of speaking is related to something that's on the spectrum. And like a lot of people, and it's like so, because I was like thinking about this in terms of cringe too, and I was like, is it empowering that people started, because people use that voice all the time and do the finger thing. Like to the point where it's almost become cool, like one of those like TikTok like faces, like the duck face used to be on Facebook or something. Like, you know what I'm saying? It shows that you've been like, you watch TikTok and you know, like,
I got you. Yeah,
but
it's
at
like
the
a
same
specific
time,
mannerism. Yeah.
But at the same time, people are doing it to show cringe because they think that like when people speak in that voice or have those mannerisms,
Like,
that they
real.
are cringe.
Right.
So it's like,
yeah,
it does feel like just a new version of like bullying people who are on the spectrum, you know?
Right. And I did do some research too, and there's something I learned about that I didn't know about, and it's called scripting. And it's like a lot of autistic people, like growing up, like they, in order to like learn about like language and like social cues and whatever, like they take a lot in from like media, like specific phrases.
Yeah.
And then like use that like a lot. And like maybe it is a little bit more cringier to other people because it was like in a movie and like, or whatever the phrases
It doesn't sound
are.
as natural to certain people because
Right.
it sounds like they're imitating something else. But yeah.
Exactly. Because they are, and like that's how they like learned or whatever. So it's like something about that as well, I think, is like what you're saying.
Yeah.
Which is just fucking not cool. Like,
Yeah,
because
it's like the whole idea of like people having to mask stuff. You know what I'm saying? And like how exhausting that is. Like, why can't they just like operate as how they are? But then it's like, because people will be fucking weird and then imitate, you know? And
that's why it's like, for us to say, it's like we have the privilege, like we can just sit here like and be like, we were just saying, like, just embrace the cringe, like do whatever you want, like don't give a fuck. But it's like people that like have disabilities, it's like they can't like get away from it, you know? It's like, so that's why it's like people are really angry about this cringe shit, and they should be, because it's like not fair. And like, I know I educated myself, and like we're going to talk about it a lot more, but basically there's a whole lot of cringe content going on. Some of it is like disgusting and like food related. Like I'm like, dude, like I don't really know. Like if you click on a cringe compilation, like right now in 2025, God knows what you're going to find, because there is so much out there.
Yeah.
But the New York Times describes cringe content as a content category, and it's vast, encompassing everything from dated cultural norms to a strategy that musical artists employ to reach real fans. Cringe is not any one thing, but you know it when you see it, kind of echoing this whole idea of what we've been talking about. Like, there really is no definition of cringe because it matters who the fuck you're asking. Okay?
Yeah.
So,
and also, like, I just want to, like, because the music artist things, like, so many TikTok comedians have built entire platforms off of cringe as humor. Like,
I know.
Mitzi and Carrington are, like, two of the biggest ones that I can think of, but there's that other girl that has, like, freckles.
And I thought there's this girl too that like imitates like dance moms. Like, I'll put her on the screen. I can't remember her name right now. She's queer too. She's super cool. She has a podcast. Yeah, she literally, and she'll be like moms in the fall at Target be like,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
it's like they're in Target going up to all the stuff and being like just doing cringy shit. Yeah, I foresee like there's
Yeah.
so much.
Well, yeah, and that's like Mitzi, like her entire like platform, it's skits, you know what I'm saying, which is art, which is comedy, which is whatever, but it's almost always like I don't even know if it's satire or whatever, like another person's TikTok, but she's acting as it with like over exaggerated facial expressions and props and like da-da-da. Like she did one recently of a girl's Get Ready With Me, and she's like doing it all dramatic, like she has all this extra shit in her hair, like kind of like making fun of how that original piece of content was cringe. You know what I'm saying? So it's like,
yes.
But then it's also like, is it like comedy and when is the line? Like it's very weird
that's
to
a
think
blurry
about.
line, and
Yeah.
I would never like to have that be your whole career is like kind of crazy,
Right,
you know,
yeah.
because the line is very blurry. But I was just curious, like, why do we think that like our society has embraced cringe culture like with open arms, like down as fucking 300 million videos on TikTok, whatever. So that's what we asked you guys. And 48% said people cringe at others to feel better about themselves. 26% said it's relatable, non-serious jokes. 22% said it's a coping mechanism. And 4% said people love to hate on their past selves. And especially with like the psychology we talked about is how like it feels good to like cringe at someone or whatever. It makes you feel
Right.
better about yourself. I do think that like that is maybe like the biggest reason it's like really it's like feeding people psychologically in that way too. But
Yeah.
some of it is non-serious jokes. Like I obviously know that. We know that. But the problem is even if there are non-serious jokes, like there's people like being hurt by this type of content and like affected, you know? So it's like
Right.
it doesn't really matter if some of it is just non-serious jokes. Like the whole thing is like rooted in something bigger. So we just have to pay attention, you know?
Yeah, and I do think it is a coping mechanism. I mean, even how the psychology stuff said, like, you know, you're making fun of these people to make yourself better, which is feel better, which is also a coping mechanism, because that's what I put.
Right.
But it's like, yeah, because I do think we're all insecure and afraid to like be ourselves or like perform and like do all of that stuff on social media. So when you see another person fuck up, it makes you feel like, oh, at least I know how not to fuck up. And also like maybe I'm not the weirdo. There's other people like weirder than me.
Exactly.
You know?
Which will make you feel better too in like a
Right.
weird fucking way. So we're going to get into more about who and what we cringe at before we get into like the roots in ableism. So like that's the direction we're going now. And ContraPoints kind of did this whole thing where she got a list that she made of all the people that she thinks are cringed at the most and then kind of found like themes between everyone. And I was just like,
Interesting.
my mind was blown. So I won't read all of these, but I'll put it on the screen for you guys from her video. So it's like incels, gamers, TikTok teens, not like other girls, feminists, MAGAs, trans people, non-binary people, autistic people, fat people, the mentally ill. So a lot of groups. And she even said like, I see myself on this list like 4 fucking times. Like, am I just the cringiest fucking person ever? You know, it's like having multiple identities, whatever. So the themes that she came up with was there's a lot of deviancy going on. There's a combination of passion and sincerity and amateurism. And in terms of themes, it's like this what some of these groups of people represent, and that's what makes them quote unquote cringe.
Got
so
it.
it's like
Okay.
deviancy, whether it's like sexual, psychological, whatever. passion and sincerity and amateurism, the perceived tendency to lack emotional composure, an obsessive interest in unconventional hobbies, which we've talked about a lot, and then just someone of low social status, like when it comes to fucking oppression, you know, it's like if you're just not in with white supremacist society, boom, you can be cringe just that easily.
Right.
And the same ideas are also echoed in this TikTok, so we'll just play it really quickly.
Let's go gambling! Aw, dang it! 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 Aw, dang it!
Yeah, when you look at the list this way, it really is like all marginalized people in a way, but I also want to like MAGA people. I'm like, all right, like you guys
Right,
deserve
and
to
like
be fucking
gamers
cringe.
and TikTok teens.
Yeah, like you know what I'm saying, but the amateurism one is interesting, and that makes a lot of sense too, because I feel like it, like duh, like I think we were really cringe at the beginning of starting this, and I still think we are in a lot of ways, because it's like we're not like professionals, but like people are so used to seeing, like,
amateurism
fully
is very
packaged shit. Like there is some
Right.
aspect, like in order to have authenticity and like realness and like whatever, you need the amateurism, passion, sincerity, lack of emotional composure too, like that
Right.
part of things. Like we're both fucking mentally ill. Like I know there's definitely been times where it's, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, but I can't help that. Like I'm just ill, mentally
Right.
ill. Like,
Yeah.
you know, so
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's like, and it's like what we're always talking about. It's like we can't have like good art without like sincerity and like authenticity. And like that video essay we watched about like cringe called like something like cringe is like the inauthenticity in video essays. There was
Right,
one
right.
video I watched about that. And so it's like that's what we have going on. So it's like that's why we're eating cringe up, because it like
Yup.
reinforces that for us in a
Right.
way. But we're like, we so much need like the more sincerity and like the real human communication and like human emotions, and everything is just like so filtered right now. But it makes cringe culture thrive, you know, they really play
Right.
off of each other. So as we've pointed out, like cringe culture is obviously has a lot of roots in ableism, and a lot of people with disabilities, autism specifically, have been speaking up on the internet for a really long time about this, how cringe culture makes them feel uncomfortable. And we're going to listen to some people and talk about it. We did ask you guys, do you think cringe culture has roots in ableism? And 68% said yes, but 32% said no. And I think because cringe is so wide, it's like it makes sense to me a little bit, because if you think about like the cringe trend, like try hard not to cringe, and then you do like a weird thing, like it's like, is that harmless? I don't know. Like, but
Yeah.
it's like that's why it's like maybe that's not harmless, but if this is where cringe is coming from, and it's like making fun of people for doing things that are not socially accepted just because that's how they are, it's like, well, then I wouldn't want to just do that trend then, you know? It's
Right.
like it spoils the whole thing. But yeah, 68% said yes, so that's good.
Yeah.
But people on TikTok are posting things like this. POV, you asked me to explain why cringe culture was invented for an ableist society for the sole purpose of normalizing and making it socially acceptable to make fun of neurodivergent people, and especially autistic people. Someone said, cringe culture is rooted in ableism, racism, misogyny, and has generally bigoted roots. And someone said, daily reminder, cringe culture is objectively ableist. Be your truest self. And then we even have people on Reddit being like, everything that isn't normal behavior gets labeled as cringe, so it is by definition ableist.
Mm-hmm.
And I also found this essay by someone named Eden, who is autistic, on the internet, and I'm just going to summarize it. We'll link it below if you guys want to check it out, and maybe I'll put some quotes on the screen. But basically, and like what ContraPunks was saying too, it's like people that are like have these niche hobbies, like gamers or whatever. And I guess there's a lot of stereotypes about autistic people. They like cosplay, or like My Little Pony, or like very specific like niche things. And Eden was saying in this essay that like maybe people that are neurodivergent go towards these niche hobbies because neurotypicals don't let them in on their shit. So they've had to like go off and like find these niche hobbies. And then they connect with other people who are also neurodivergent and like it's a safe space, but then they still get shamed for it when it's like, but they felt like they weren't like included in like the other hobbies that maybe other people, neurotypical people, were doing. So she just kind of like expresses her frustration in this and like the irony of it, where it's like, now you guys are like making fun of us for having cringy hobbies when like I never felt included and you never wanted me around or like whatever. And like this is actually something that like makes me feel good and like I love this hobby that I have, and like now people are making fun of it on the internet and like it hurts, you know? So it's just like very, very real. But yeah.
Yeah, and it's just downright like making fun of like the disabilities themselves too, or like being neurodivergent at all, because it's like that is part of what being neurodivergent is not getting certain social cues. And like cringe is all about being socially acceptable. So it's like it is like it just feels like yes, it makes so much sense for it to be like inherently ableist,
and I think like
sucks.
If you're making cringe videos or like enjoying that content, you are neurotypical, like just try to think about it from like not your perspective. Like think about it like from someone who is neurodivergent and watching a video of someone making fun of the hobby that they love and like cringing at this certain thing. Like it's just not fucking cool, bro. And it's just like it's all trends and it just blows up on the internet and then it just feels out of your control. It's like, what can we really do? But I just think we need to be like a little bit more careful. Like this is not the first problematic TikTok trend, obviously, or culture being created. But it's just like, it's wild, because if you told me this 2 weeks ago, I would have had no idea that cringe culture has roots in ableism. And I do think a lot of people are talking about it, but not nearly enough. Like even doing research on TikTok, like there's not a lot out there on it from people that are neurotypical. Like it's mostly just neurodivergent people talking about it, which I think is great, but I just think more people should
be.
So we just wanted to like really call that out in this episode. You know, obviously we can't speak to it as much because we can't relate, but like it's important. And I do want to listen to one more person's perspective. We're going to watch this TikTok on 2x speed real quick.
Terms like cringe are disproportionately used against autistic people, because if you really look at the majority of like TikTok cringe compilations or cosplay cringe compilations, the vast majority of the video is just neurodivergent people that are doing normal fucking things. But because maybe their body language is slightly unconventional or the way they talk is like quite uncommon, people will just make it the laughing stock of the fucking week. Because something I've noticed with being around a lot more neurodivergent people is it's not only the beauty standards of how you physically look, there are beauty standards to the way that you behave. There are behaviors and ways of carrying yourself that are seen as more socially attractive. And surprise, surprise, neurodivergent people don't fit in those standards a lot of the time. And before someone says it, I'm not talking about uncomfortable or creepy or inappropriate behavior. If you are a neurodivergent person who's got like kind of a track record for going too far and maybe making people uncomfortable, it is your responsibility to know when to step back. And I say this as a neurodivergent person who had this problem in the past. But generally, when I talk about behavioral beauty standards, I'm talking about making eye contact with people and knowing when to say the right thing and knowing what to say next and having normal body language, no stimming, no ticking. And I heard somebody say once that neurodivergent people have the same effect on neurotypical people as like uncanny valley stuff. Apparently that we can come across as quite like uncanny and bizarre. And I reckon if that's true, that's probably why a lot of neurotypical people tend to be able to like suss you out as being different before they even know that you are neurodivergent. Like the kids I knew in high school definitely knew there was something about me that was quite unconventional before I was even aware of it. And that's why a lot of neurodivergent people become the outcasts. I'm sorry, but if you think that somebody swaying back and forth is peak cringe, you need to find some new material. If you enjoy talking to neurodivergent people or asking them questions just so you can laugh at their responses, you're a horrible person. Somebody making less eye contact or stimming or maybe ticking or anything like that is not the peak humor that you think it is. It is plainly ableist. You are plainly ableist, and everyone around you can see it. Ever notice that all of these people making these cringe compilations are completely anonymous behind their accounts? That is fucking why.
I think what she's saying like makes a lot of sense to like the whole like idea of neurotypical people having this like uncanny feeling with like neurodivergent people, because it's like interacting with someone that is like just socially different. But a lot of times I think neurotypical people, like us, like ourselves included, often put that like uncomfortability on neurodivergent people rather than looking at ourselves and being like, why are we never direct? Yeah, because I feel like that is something with neurodivergent people is like, you know, they don't get social cues as much, or maybe neurotypical people just aren't direct enough. You know what I'm saying? Like we're always pointing the finger at neurodivergent people and being like, oh, well, they don't do this right. But it's also us that we aren't being direct. Like a lot of times, like we don't say exactly what we mean, or we feel like that is too impolite. Like a lot of the like impoliteness and stuff. And I've definitely been guilty of that like in the past, where I didn't know someone was necessarily like neurodivergent and there was like something that like made me uncomfortable for whatever reason. But it was often because it required more communicate. Like I needed to communicate differently or outside of how I normally would. And it wasn't this person's like fault. Like it was neither, like we just have to figure out how to communicate like to each other. You know what I'm saying? Instead of me being like, oh, they're not getting it, da 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 da. Like that's so like fucked up to think that way.
Right.
So,
and it's also like, you know, we're saying and learning, it's like neurodivergent people, like they struggle with social cues. And for neurotypicals, it's like, struggling with social cues is like our worst fucking nightmare. Like we want to be fucking perfect and we want to fit in and conform and like all of that is like vital. So it's almost like when you see, it's like that's what we make fun of because we're so afraid to like go outside of those social cues. Yeah. And then neurodivergents watch this cringe content and it's like, but maybe that's what I act like for real. And like, there's nothing wrong with that though. Yeah. Because it is like, it like makes you want to like look in the mirror, especially as a neurotypical and be like, well, but why is this the right way to act? Right. Though? Like who decided that? And then it's like, okay, Autumn, well, we live in like white supremacists, like whatever. Like it's all working against all marginalized groups of people. Whoa, my headphones went for a swing. But so, yeah, and it's uncomfortable to talk about, you know? It's like, it really is. Like, it's like, I never want to be like, things that neurodivergent people do is cringe. But it's like, if we're going to be real, like that's what's like going on the internet. And that's how people are feeling. And it's like, just because society's saying cringe is bad, I think we've learned through this episode that it's a normal emotion to feel. And like, we can choose to like move past that because I don't want to look at things like they're cringe, especially when it is like someone having an off social cue or like being a little bit more direct with their feelings when like we should all be doing that anyway. Like it makes actually neurotypicals look fucking stupid.
Well,
why wouldn't you want to be like that? And not like you can't, you know? It's like.
Right. And I was just thinking too, like, I think it's way more cringe for me, honestly, to see a video of a neurotypical person acting like a neurodivergent person versus seeing a video of a neurodivergent person just talking. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that, like speech impediment voice or like, you know, different like
and the fake illnesses, the fake mental illnesses and disabilities. Like I see a lot of it of like dissociative identity disorder and like and it's horrible. It's like compilations of people faking illnesses on TikTok. And then someone that like actually has said illness that they were accused of faking is like, I ended up on this cringe compilation. I don't even know how I got there. Like whatever. Like it's crazy, you know?
That's so
and it's crazy to fake an illness online. And I know people do that. And that's like a thing.
And to do it as humor.
But like, you know, imagine if you're like being so for real, making a TikTok about your mental illness. And then you end up on a cringe compilation of someone faking it. Like that's what's like going on and like what people are doing to each other. So it's just insane. And like, I feel this person's passion in the TikTok, like, she seems angry and like I want to like be angry for her too. Like it's not okay. And I think that like if we were like, I think younger people, like if you're like 18, 19 right now, like that is where like the most cringe is flying and like they're taking it very seriously. Like that is cringe. Do not act like that. Where like you and I, it's like we cringe at stuff, we laugh, we move on. Like, we're not serious about it. So that's why even this exact conversation can feel silly because it's just like, well, just get over it. Just be yourself. Like, cringe is freedom. Like, do whatever. But it's like, then you have this realness layer of like
people bullying.
The ableism and bullying online in like new fucking trendy ways. Like, it's fucking weird. And we needed to call that out. So I'm glad we did. All right, so that brings us to the end of the episode, guys. We are going to wrap up real quick with what we're so wet, so dry, and still a little bit confused about the topic because it is okay to still be confused. I will go first. I feel like per usual with our topics, I'm wet about looking at cringe in a new way. I did a lot of research for this. A lot of people talked about cringe the same way. Maybe they had different definitions, but like, I do feel like breaking it down and like that, especially the social aspect of like being perceived and all of that is really interesting to me. And I think this whole idea of being perceived and like what is cringe and socially acceptable is just going to continue to take off even more with like AI, and like we're all online, and like new ways to communicate, and like what is authenticity. So I don't know. It really fed me to like dive deep into this, and like I feel wet that we're not sitting here saying like be cringe or don't be cringe, because I just feel like the messaging around it, like I just want to kind of like exist in the cringe, like it's fine, whatever, but I don't want to pay too much attention to it anymore. Like in terms of like I'm feeling bad about myself or like cringing at someone else. It's like, let's just like be normal. Like I don't want to ever tell anyone that they're doing something cringe. I just want to like be myself and like call it a day, because honestly the word itself like really cringes me the fuck out. But yeah, so I'm just wet about thinking about it in like a new way that I've seen differently, like online and stuff.
Yeah, same. Honestly, like wet about this topic because I think it's just such an interesting topic. Like it's so nuanced. It's such a paradox. There's so many different groups and identities involved and perceptions and like whatever.
That's why
so
it really
it's like,
hurt my brain to do
this. To cover this topic. I mean, honestly, like I feel like I know like you say at the end, I don't want to even think about cringe at all. I kind of feel differently. I feel like I do feel more like I need to embrace my own cringe and not like beat myself up about it. And I feel like I don't do that a ton. Like usually it's just me like the next day being hungover, thinking about what I did, like drunk the night before and like spiraling. And like that is very dry about stuff. But like I also think like just embracing the idea that it's like we all do cringy stuff and like and that's okay, and it's not that fucking serious. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that I feel like I need to be better at, because like it's easy for me to like spiral down a rabbit hole of like this is the worst thing ever, like, you know. So I feel like I do want to just embrace being more cringy and embarrassing, because like clearly half like even the stuff that we're talking about with ableism, it's like that isn't cringy and it isn't embarrassing. It's literally, you know, how neurodivergent people live and operate in this world. So like, why would I feel embarrassment about, like, why would I be worried about what others perceive me as cringe when like clearly they don't have it fucking figured out. And also very wet about like talking about the neurodivergent angle with this and how this stuff is ableist, because like as far as the isms go and like unlearning them, I feel like ableism and just like more knowledge about neurodivergent people isn't something that I'm like the most confident in. Like I feel like I definitely have more work to do in like unlearning my inherent ableism and, you know, the ways that like I'm privileged as a neurotypical person and all of that stuff. So like I'm always excited when we can bring in like another identity or group of people and just
and ableism covers so much, like physical disabilities, like you can't use the stairs, you have to use a ramp, or like a mental disability, or
because even like both of us with our mental disability, like technically
like,
it's just different.
It's just different, because I think mental illness can also go into ableism if you have a mental illness that like debilitates you to be able to do certain things, or like even to act a certain way, like, you know?
Because even I've been thinking about that a lot recently, like as I got my bipolar diagnosis, and I was literally tripping about that with my therapist, because I was like, I don't see myself as mentally ill. And so like, but that's like, I feel like by me not doing that, I'm also like projecting that on other people and how I view the world too, because it's like, no, like bipolar, depression, anxiety disorders, all of these are literal mental illnesses. They are disabilities. You can get disability, you know, for your job, which they never.
And that's not your fault, even, because society works overtime to convince you that it's not. Like,
that you can control it, you know. So I feel like I've been operating in society like, no, I can just fix it. I can just fucking fix it. And it's like, no, like it's okay that you have something wrong with you. Like that's, you know, how you are. It's harder for you in certain aspects. So I definitely think, like ableism, we both have disabilities. I think I'm still acknowledging how that is a disability, which is a whole trip.
But I know, like I don't even think I can say that. Like I
feel like it's
insane
like saying that
in a way.
Because it's like I feel very privileged in so many aspects of my life that I'm like, who am I to sit here and be like I'm disabled because of my mental health? But like when I was having that conversation with my therapist, she was like, well, you're never gonna get better then if you don't see it as a problem.
Because you're not being honest with yourself, and you're just like, it's fine, and you spend your whole life trying to like hide it and like not act a certain
Yes.
way or like just like tone it down so you believe it. Like it
Right.
isn't a big deal. You just like have this thing, but like, yeah, it's fine. Like
it's
people
fine,
have
it's
it so
cool.
much worse. Like they
Right.
can't do this or blah, 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 blah. So yeah, I fucking feel that, bro. I feel that. But yeah, I'm what about that too. And I guess for dry, like, I mean, I definitely like, I'm not someone that like eats up cringe content. Like I'm
Yeah.
pretty dry about it. Like I
Yeah.
do think it's fun. I think it's funnier when it's like try not to cringe, but it's like try not to laugh. Like that's how I kind of look at those. It's
Yeah.
like someone's doing something funny and you have to try not to laugh. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. But like overall, like cringe content is not like I'm pretty dry about it. Like I think
Yeah.
a lot of it's fucked up. I think of a lot of it's just fucking weird and it's gonna haunt you in your nightmares. Like I think it's just bizarre, but that's why I wanted to like look at the episode more like not scientifically, but like a little more
Yeah.
intellectually about like what's really going on when we're cringing. Because that's a little bit more interesting to me. But yeah, obviously just like dry about all the hate and the bullying online. Like with all the videos I watch, like I really like my heart goes out to the people that like really feel victimized by a lot of these videos. Like it's not okay. And it's just crazy. Like just like thinking about like that last story that Eden read as well. It's like we as neurotypicals like really make fun of like the exact things that like neurodivergent people do because
Yeah.
like we're afraid to like be weird and be ourselves when like we really like might have those same tendencies but we like shove them down or like whatever. Like it's just like it really did like fuck me up a little bit because exactly like it's not the first thing on my mind all the time and I think it should be more. Like I do want to like unlearn it more and think about that. But so yeah.
Yeah, same. I'm definitely dry about my blind spots. I feel like to like
Yeah,
the
blind
ableism and the like struggles of neurodivergent people, and also like how much of our culture is just set up in a way that's like, you know, like damn, like you're being bullied all the time and like throughout this very trendy popular content.
Right,
like,
and it's a lot of kids too.
Yeah.
And that's why it's hard for us because it's like we're not really in that anymore.
Yeah.
But
We're
it's
not
like
in high school.
millennials people making fun of like
yeah. And I
it's
would imagine
weird.
this is like, because I remember being in high school and middle school and stuff and people making fun of neurodivergent people. Like, you know, that was always a thing. But I would think that now with it being a trendy type of content, it's just even more so.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
And you're behind a like an account. Like you're not like a real person. Like you're
and I
commenting.
think it's like also like it has me thinking about like, remember back during the pandemic, everyone was like diagnosing themselves as like autistic on TikTok too. And it led to a lot of people who are actually autistic or on the spectrum or whatever, like finding diagnoses and meeting with a therapist and medication and blah, 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 blah.
Right.
But I think that there is this weird thing going on where people learned more about neurodivergence or didn't. It just became like more part of the culture. And then we think it's okay for neurotypical people to make fun of neurodivergent people. And that was never okay. Because they're like, oh, like I'm like an eighth neurodivergent, like I don't know, like you know what I'm saying? Like,
I do remember that.
Yeah, like whatever, but yeah, as far as dry, I'm definitely dry about all of this content in general. I think the only cringe content that I'm not dry about is when someone is posting something that they themselves did that they thought is cringe and like we're laughing together, or people like how they were saying it's more like lovable when people like will do the cringy thing.
Right.
It actually makes us like them more. That makes
and like
a lot
more
of sense.
trustworthy. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think about a lot of the TikTokers that I do like whose personalities are like super out there or like they'll be I mean, even Alex Earl to an extent. Like I'm not a big Alex Earl fan, but like she would talk about her like cringy drunk nights and whatever, and people like loved that she was like honest and like real. I mean, her like with the puking on the dress and like all that shit. So yeah, I'm definitely, but for the most part, dry about the content, dry about the feeling, like both when I feel it towards other people because that's mean, and towards myself because like
that's mean.
Being nicer to like other people and myself. Like I think to a point we can't help it, but yeah.
Right. And for confused, I mean, I do want to like dive into in like another episode on like being perceived and like main character syndrome, because I'm like, are we just like in a state of like always like, how are we going to be perceived? How do I not be cringe right now? Like, how do I do this, that? And it's like, it's so rigid. Like, I wish we could just be more like free and there weren't all these like social norms like pressing down on us. Like, even with little things with like what you're gonna wear. Like, I wish we would just like stop thinking about
You know what that
stuff.
makes me think of? The main character in the Cringe stuff, like how so many people are hating on Carrie Bradshaw. How we kind of talked about that.
Yeah.
But she's literally a main character in a TV show. And like a lot of the stuff she does is cringe because it's like, it's cringe
Like, main
to be in love
characters
with
are
someone.
always cringe.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they have to be because the whole world is
Because we're
revolving
looking
around
at all
them.
their angles. Like, we're literally perceiving them out of all these different characters.
Right.
And like, as an audience, like,
Yes.
the fuck? Like,
Yes.
there's gonna, like, cringe is inevitable. Like,
Yep.
maybe that is a thing, you know? So
Yeah.
that's what I'm just like more confused and like want to look into more on, just like, why are we so obsessed with being perceived like more than ever, like right now? And like, has that allowed for like cringe culture to thrive because we like making fun of people to feel better about our own selves?
Yeah.
Or are we just lonely and we want to connect, or like, what is it?
As far as confused for me, I think the biggest thing is just like coping mechanisms for like dealing with cringe in yourself. And I think like, because we all feel it and it fucking sucks. And like, why does it suck? And it's so easy to spiral from that feeling. And then just like suddenly you're in the dark of a depression of like, I'm an imposter and everyone thinks I'm an idiot and blah, 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 blah. And the best thing I can think of like is really just like hanging out with other fucking people. You know what I'm saying? Like getting offline, like touching grass, like being around like human beings. And then it's like, then you're like very clearly, and if you haven't been in a while, recognize that the first couple times that you hang out with people, you're gonna feel cringy. You know what I'm saying? And I used to think like I would only hang out with people when I was drinking all the time because like I'm afraid of being cringe or like da-da-da. But it's like, no, you just have to get in the practice of it more. And I'm really realizing that the more I'm like working the bartending job and I'm just like in person all the time. But yeah, I think that's like the best strategy I can think of. And also just get distracted, like do something else. Like don't let yourself spiral because that's not real. That's the voices, you know?
Right. Harley Quinn. Exactly.
Yes,
So, yes. Let us know if you guys liked this episode. If you have any additional thoughts, please comment them below on YouTube. You can also subscribe, like the video, and you can give us a rating over on Apple and or Spotify and follow us there as well. We post polls for upcoming episodes every single week over on our Instagram at So Wet So Dry. The O's are zeros. So follow us there too. And on TikTok, we like to post on there sometimes as well.
Yes, we also have listener support. It's 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99 a month. It is through Spotify, but it is at the bottom of the description of every single episode, no matter what platform you guys are listening on. So we really hope that you do that. And we love you guys so much. We will catch you in the next episode. Bye.
Bye.